Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms. I am joined here as always with my partner in crime, Sam Schneider. And this is the week 4 preview of Jungle Talk. Yeah.
Who Day, Thursday night, baby.
Who
Thursday
Day coming,
night.
yeah, short week coming off a win. Let's go through. We'll do what we usually do. We're going to do so. We'll cover some news, and then we'll talk about the things we're not feeling good about, the things we're feeling good about, and then we'll do our score predictions. And just to start off, where I figured I would share this was I found this on my Twitter feed, but clearly the voodoo didn't work. But the thing that always amazes me is if this is like a replica jersey, it's still like $75. I mean, that's like literally taking $75 and burning it. It's like I just shake my head, and if it's not a replica, it's not a heat transfer and it's a tackle twill, and then you're looking at 200-300. It's like, I just shake my head. I go, okay. I mean, I got better things to do with my money. If you truly believe the Jets are going to win,
look at how angry that guy is.
Oh yeah, bet the Jets money line. Take the money from that jersey and bet the Jets money line. You're still throwing out $75, but at least there's a chance for a payoff. Here, you just have a burned jersey at the end. So I thought that was kind of amusing. So I thought I would share that with you all. It's on my Twitter feed. You can always, if you don't follow me or Sam on Twitter, that's a big mistake. So, get in there, follow the Bengal homepage, the LA Bengal fan Facebook page, follow us on Twitter because we're chatting and tweeting. Sam, I see, is always giving people, he does a whole fantasy football thing. So he's giving starts and sits. And so guys, you should be following Sam. Our tags or our handles are right there. Buy and sell you. And I'm LA Bengals fan on Twitter. So you should be in there. So
come on in. The water's fine.
Come on in. Yeah, it's a nice day. Weather's good. So beers are cold. So let's get into some of the news. Obviously, the Reader news just hit that he's out indefinite. So we said on Sunday we knew he wasn't going to play this week.
Yeah, you don't. When a guy leaves the game, 9 times out of 10, they say he's questionable to return. And most of those times, the person doesn't return anyway, but they still just say he's questionable to return. It's pretty rare that they just immediately say he's out for the game. And that just means, we know there's a big problem. Yeah. And he watched the second half from the locker room.
Yeah. So, by the way, I didn't plug my mic in. I just plugged it in. So if there's a difference in the sound, that's what it counts for. I want to address something I have seen on Facebook and on Twitter. So much Mixon hate that I just want to say, guys, shut up. I mean, there was somebody who, he was either Facebook or Twitter, who said we should be starting Pirine. His average is this. When Pirine comes in the game, the other team doesn't know whether it's knows it's not a run because we don't hand it to him. So when he catches the ball or we're giving it to him, he's not getting with Mixon's in the game, they're stacking the box. We already talked about how we were tipping our hand, being under center and all that. When Mixon gets hit 3 yards behind the line, what do you expect him to do?
Right.
Just shut up with the benching Mixon stuff.
Well, and there's, I had one friend that pointed out, he said and he's a very, generally a pretty optimistic guy. And he was like, I'm just not seeing the same effort out of Mixon that I'm used to. And I was like, well, it's kind of like when Burrow gets sacked 7 times in a game, you start to get shell shocked and you start to get a little frustrated that there's nowhere to go. And so I can understand Mixon's frustration with that. I don't think he's giving anything less than 100%. But it's hard when they know you're coming. They know you're coming.
Yeah, and Mixon's one of those guys where he likes to run like Le'Veon Bell in his prime used to run, where he'll go to the outside and he'll wait to see where his blockers are going and how the holes are developing. And I don't think he has the same feeling with this line right now where he's able to, so the chemistry's not there. Just like the line needs to gel, Mixon needs to kind of gel with the line, and we're just not there yet. So this isn't a bench Mixon. The ball skills and the athletic ability that Mixon has is so vastly superior to Pirine. Don't go by the small sample when they didn't know what Pirine was doing, and they think it's a pass play because Pirine's in, so they're not stacking the box, and he's able to get 4 or 5 yards.
Correct. And you know, for you know, it's one of those things, like it or not, Mixon is still a top tier running back in this league. You don't bench him for that. If this same thing was happening to Derrick Henry, do you think Tennessee would run Hilliard out there instead? No, of course not. So, I mean, it's, you know, sure, it's frustrating as a fan. I guarantee you it's even more frustrating for him. But you know, you got to stick with him and just keep rooting for him and hope that it turns around.
Yeah, and it will. Like I said, I think it's all about, because you watch him, you remember him from last year, and he would wait. He was so patient, and he would wait to see where the hole would go. And I don't think he has that kind of feeling with this line yet. And like I said, he's usually encountering pressure 2, 3 yards deep before he even does anything.
Right,
So,
which I think is part of the reason that we keep running it straight up the middle. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think it's one of those things where he doesn't feel like he has time to wait and see where the hole's going to open up because he thinks he's going to get swallowed in the backfield.
right.
So he's just like trying to crash the boards and get up there as quickly as he can so as not to lose yards on every play.
Right. So the other thing I want to touch on was, and I just closing out on the injury report, we had a bunch of limiteds. Drew Sample, obviously, we knows out for a while. DJ Reader, we just talked about, you know, probably at least a month, I would think. They didn't put him on IR, which means it's not, and if they said it's definitely not season ending. And then Lael Collins, I think, is just resting his back. I just would assume we'll see him practicing later, you know, maybe tomorrow or you know.
Yeah, I think so too, especially since, you know, my initial take on Lael was that it was that he would probably play this past Sunday, but that I was a little leery about assuming he would play, turn around then and play immediately on Thursday without the proper recuperation time. But given that there weren't any situations on Sunday where, you know, it kind of took him a while to get up or he kind of had to hobble off, we didn't see any of that.
Right.
So all as far as I can tell as a fan watching that game is that he was feeling pretty good and came through the game without, you know, aggravating anything. You know, as far as I know. So yeah, I agree with you. I think he's, you know, he's a veteran. He's been a little bit banged up. So yeah, I think they just gave him some time off.
Yeah, I agree. So, and the last thing isn't related to this week's preview, but we had Josh Hoffman on our show from Cincy Bob's, and I just wanted to show everybody the Kenny Anderson Bengals porn stash. For those of you who didn't see the show, go back and watch it. But he tells the whole story about how they did multiple bobbleheads, and and they even joked before meeting with him to get his input about the porn stash, and he said, "Oh, I think I like the one with the porn stash." So that's the one. But this is a signed one. I think they got all sold out. It was a big event. I paid.
Oh yeah, it's sold out.
Yeah, I pay for these, so nobody sent me this for free to do this plug. Obviously, he sold them all. He didn't need my press, but I'm a paying customer. But I think David Fulcher is the next one coming out. So
they have a bunch of them too. I know Carl Pickens is coming. Like you said, Fulcher, and I saw a couple other ones too. He just kind of did a quick preview of here's some things that are in the offing,
right?
And there were prototypes made of a couple of them. So they're always doing something real fun.
Yeah, well, follow Cincy Bob's on Facebook. Definitely, you can follow him on Twitter as well. But you get a lot of updates on Facebook. And and if you want to go back and watch the show, it was one of the preseason shows we did. I really enjoyed it, and he told a lot of the background stories of how they work with the player to get bobbleheads that they like. So, and he told the whole history of how they take, the Paul Brown one he did was from the old man. They used the old man in the from Pawn Stars and turned it into a Paul Brown because he's got an artist that works with them. So that's how they do their prototypes. It's a real interesting show. So go back and watch that. All right, let's get into the things we're not feeling good about, the things we're feeling good about. We always start with the negative. So I've got a couple. I mean, Miami's on a roll right now. I mean, they're playing with a lot of confidence, and they have a very good defense, which frightens me. Offensively, they're a lower scoring team other than the shootout they got into.
Baltimore.
Yeah, but other than that, and they were down big, which is why they had to pass. That's not the kind of game they play. So, but they're definitely, hey, they're 3-0 team. So, don't take them lightly. I think they're the only one in the AFC. Am I right there? They're only 3-0.
Yeah, there's only 2 3-0 teams, and it's Philadelphia and Miami.
Right. So
They're the only ones left.
yeah, so that's it. So, and ironically, to all my Raider friends that gave me grief and how everything was going to be, the Raiders are actually the only 0-3 team. So, and they don't have an easy game this week. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, you gotta watch out on defense. You know, they have Emmanuel Ogba, who can get to the quarterback. You've got Melvin Ingram, who I think has 2 sacks on the season already.
Right.
So they're, it's almost like the Jets, where it's not like they've got, that TJ Watt guy. They don't have that Micah Parsons guy, but they're a very capable defense, and they seem to be very sound as well.
Right.
They don't make a lot of penalties. Xavier Howard is a killer cornerback.
Right.
So they've got really good pieces at each different level. Even if, they don't have all the best, maybe they don't have the best line in the league. They got a couple good guys on the line. Maybe they don't have the best linebackers in the league. But you got Melvin Ingram, and you've got a couple other guys.
Yeah.
You've got Xavier Howard. You've got who's the safety? The safety is Javon Holland, who's listed as questionable, but I don't know if he was just getting a day off or not.
Right.
But he's a hard hitting guy too, plays really well over the top. So yeah, they could certainly do some damage. But then again, we have a great defense too.
Yeah, and I'll throw out one other name is Jerome Baker, who I think had 9 or 10 tackles last week. He had 9 or 10 tackles week 1. I mean, this guy just seems to find the ball. He's got a good nose for the ball. You don't consistently have 9 or 10 tackles every week and not have a nose for the football. Right. So, I mean, you're not in the Ray Lewis area where, if you were in fantasy football with individual defensive guys, you never had Ray Lewis because he had 18 and everybody else had 2. But he's not up in that elm, but he's a consistent ball. He has got a nose for the ball. So there are concerns for me there on their defense, like I said, and they're playing with a ton of confidence. For those people who follow the Dolphins on Twitter, because there's been a lot of, actually they've gotten a little chippy used to be more of a friendly thing on Twitter, and I guess when we got Burrow and they got Tua and the whole that it got chippy.
It's amazing how much Miami fans dislike us.
Yeah, and it was
and it's only been since that draft. It's only been since then.
Yeah, it goes back the year before we lost an overtime game in Miami, and that basically was the difference with us getting Burrow and having the number 1 pick. And I remember when we went into overtime, I was yelling at the screen, Dalton, what the hell are you doing? We don't want to win this game. You guys have shown up, but I'm okay with the 2 wins. Let's get to the draft. And so I just remember that was the only time we've lost the game in overtime where I've been happy.
Right. Where you're like, okay.
And apparently I'm not the only one who had, a feeling about it, because the owner, fired the whole Brian Flores firing goes back to him not tanking enough to get, Joe. So, but it's weird how it was never that way. We played Miami before, and it's never been as chippy as it was on Twitter since that event. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't have anything else on the cons because it was, I
think the cornerbacks once again got to be ready, because this is a super dynamic duo, wide receiver. Tyreek Hill has already come right out and said, I can't wait to play Eli Apple again.
Right.
Because Eli pretty much shut him down last year.
Right.
And he already came out and said, I think it was in their post-game presser when they asked him about Cincinnati, and he said, I can't wait to get Eli Apple again. I mean, he was laughing. He wasn't talking a whole bunch of trash or anything like that. So, you've got Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle is going to be a superstar in this league.
Right.
And Tua is just peppering him with targets. He had some ungodly amount of targets in, I think, week 1. This will say it all. In 3 games, he's got 30 targets.
Right.
That's a lot. But the two of them are each over 300 yards for the season after 3 games. They
Right.
each have over 100 yards after the catch on the season in 3 games. So really got to be wary of where they are. And even their tight end, Jasicki, who's not, one of the best tight ends in the league, he seems to always have a knack for showing up when you least expect it,
Right.
especially in the red zone. So, we gotta keep an eye on that. And Tua is playing well. And I was going to say that I don't feel very good about, Tua's ability to get moving with his legs. But what I didn't realize was so far this season, he's got 4 carries for a yard.
Yeah. He's
which is astounding to me, that he's not really using his legs at all. But of course, the Bengal fan of me is like, well, that'll change this week.
Yeah, of course it will. Well, Jasecki, the interesting thing about Jasecki, and I had him in fantasy last year, he's not a big part. This team scheme doesn't incorporate the tight end a lot, but he seems to catch. He'll have 3 catches, 4 targets, 3 catches in the game, but the 3 catches will be 2 first downs and a touchdown. I mean, when they need that, when they're in that 3rd and 5, he catches that 6-yard.
Yeah, he tends to
and
step up.
You sleep on him because he hasn't been a big part. So you kind of go with Waddle and now Tyreek Hill this year. This is it. I actually wasn't going to bring up the receivers because to me that was a pro when he called out Apple. So, I thought, hey, that'll stir the team up and get them refocused. I love it whenever you give us locker room material to pin up on and say, look what this guy said. I mean,
I guess I'm still just a little bit. I still don't know Apple well enough to know how he responds to that sort of thing. Because what I don't want is for him to try too hard now, because Tyreek Hill said his name, and then end up making a mistake because he's being overly aggressive. Or
get cautious. Get cautious to where he's standing there. You let the guy catch the ball and you're standing there waiting to make the tackle. It's like, no, make a football play. Don't get cautious. So I wouldn't be surprised if Lou shuffles things up and Apple isn't covering Hill.
Right.
That's what wouldn't surprise me. We have enough pieces to where Apple doesn't have to be the one covering Hill. So you could take that off. And we know about Hill. So this isn't any news. We played Hill. We're prepared for him twice last year. We shut him down or managed him both times. So I think, and that'll transition us right into the pros, is that, things that you feel good about. I like the fact that we know Tyreek Hill. This is our third time preparing for him in less than 10 games?
Right.
Played him towards the end of the year, played him in the postseason, and now we're playing him now. So it's got to be less than, didn't do the math, but that's got to be less than 10 games. So I think that's a plus. Let me throw this one other thing up that I want you guys to see. And this one is the thing that I'm feeling the most good about. And that's this. I want you to look at this. Ignore the score line. If you were told these statistics, because you're coming off the Bills, they beat the Bills, you think, oh my God, that's amazing. But when you look at this, 2-1 time of possession, right? 2-1 in first downs, more than 2-1 in almost 2.5-1 in yards, and more than 2-1 in offensive plays. You would think that this was a complete blowout, and yet the Dolphins won this game. So I give credit to them for being very opportunistic, but they by no means, the Bills helped them. The only way you have those stats and you don't win the game if you're the Bills is turnovers on downs, penalties. I mean, you had to assist the other team in multiple ways.
Right.
So that's something that makes me feel good. Yes, they're coming off this Bills win. We were coming off a Jets game where they stole the game, right? I think like Miami, I give them kudos for winning this game, but like I said, that graphic makes me feel good coming into this week, because if we hold them to 30 offensive plays or 40, 39 offensive plays, I feel good. So let's see. We have a good defense. We've talked about it. So that's one of the. I think that's a big thing that I'm feeling good about when I see that graphic.
Yeah, I've got 2 of them, and I'll go back to Tua again. He's, like I said, he's playing well. I'm certainly not going to take that from him. He's got 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. which is a step up for him. It's another year of advancing in his career and getting better and better and better, and not using his legs as much is impressive too. He's got, I think, 925 yards on the season. But again, keep in mind, he had almost 500 against Baltimore.
Right.
So that means he's averaging about 200 yards a game. And, other than that Baltimore game, it's not like they've been blowing everybody out of, the other two teams out of the water or anything. But the other thing I think is really interesting is their running game is just, it's a mess. They got Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, both of whom are reclamation projects.
Right.
And the team as a whole through 3 games has 192 yards rushing. Mostert and Edmonds are each sitting in the high 70s in yardage. Obviously, that means no one's had a 100-yard game or anything like that. They're splitting the carries pretty much right down the middle. I don't see any reason why we can't stop this running game and make them one-dimensional with Tua and the receivers, which will only help us.
Right. And what was Tua's passing yards last week against the Bills?
I don't recall exactly. I think it was about 110 because he left the game for a minute when he had the pseudo concussion.
Yeah. I've watched a lot of boxing in my day. When somebody stands up and then wobbles and goes back down,
Right.
That's typically not your back. I know that's what they claimed, but that sure looked like a head trauma to me.
Oh, my mistake. Actually, last week he was pretty much right on his pace. So he had 186 yards. He only had 5 incompletions. He was 13 of 18 with 1 touchdown.
And what did we just see on that graphic? What, 219 yards or something?
Right.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 209. I don't remember. I don't want to bring it up again, but so that means that they had back like 20, 30 yards rushing.
Yeah.
In the game.
Yeah.
And somehow won the game. So
yes.
I told you your quarterback didn't have 200 yards. Your running game didn't muster more than 30.
Didn't get off the ground.
And you're outgained 3-1 on plays and 2-1 on time possession, and somehow you win. I mean, that's not a formula for winning.
And you finish the game with a quarterback who didn't even know he was a quarterback.
Right. So yeah. So like I said, that game could have gone totally different too. If they get one more second, they're running up to the line. I mean, we saw all the tantrum by I can't remember what his name is, the Bills offensive coordinator, OC, who threw the tablet and was throwing all the stuff.
Dorsey.
Ken Dorsey, yeah.
Ken Dorsey.
I mean, they had a shot at like a 50+ yard field goal, which, in the day used to be, we thought that was a long shot. Now you're not a starting kicker if you can't routinely knock down quarters of your 50-yarders.
Yeah,
you're true. Not or at least half, so they had a legitimate shot at still, Bills saving the game.
Right.
And so that makes me feel good. And then the last thing we talked about was, Tua banged up. I mean, whether if it's a back, if he was concussed, he's not going to be taken out because of concussion, anything. The Players Association already announced they're going to take 2 weeks on this investigation.
Right.
So in terms of whether or not, because I think it was surprising to everybody that he came back in.
Well, and regardless of what happens, I think at this stage of the game, all they could actually do is probably fine the team for not going through the proper channels, the proper protocol for pulling him off the field. But they wouldn't, I don't think they would penalize the player and tell him he can't play in a game. Right. You know what I mean? So, he's going to be out there on Thursday, but banged up or not. So, we'll just have to be ready for him.
Yeah, well, I'm not that concerned in terms of his passing game because, like, the Baltimore game, they went into halftime, they were down 3 scores. I mean, they had to come out slinging the ball.
Yeah.
And they were lucky to pull that game off, but and I was happy they did because they beat the Ravens, but, kind of kept the division nice and tight.
I think it's interesting. I've actually already seen and read a couple different things where people are saying, what's it going to take for Cincinnati to pull off this upset? Cincinnati is favored in this game.
Yeah.
We're favored. Now, obviously, you get 3 points for being at home.
Right.
And we're only favored, depending on who you look at, by 3.5 or 4.
Right.
So, that only puts us at about 1. But even still, I mean, we're favored. I don't know. It doesn't really mean anything. I know it doesn't mean anything to the players.
No.
All the players see is they're 3-0, we're 1-2, and we want to get back to 500.
Yeah, and this is a big game in terms of the tiebreaker because down the road, if we're both neither one of us win our divisions and we're both wild card teams, I mean this game could play in to the tiebreaker.
Sure, and one way or another, you know, if one of us does win our division, or if we both do, there's certainly a chance that we could see this team again in the postseason if we make it.
Yeah. So Miami was just on the outside looking in, which made the Brian Flores firing so surprising.
Yeah,
That's why it wasn't about the performance because they were playing for him last year. It was about something else. And
that was silly. He's a good coach.
Oh, and that's why he's working. He was out of work for a very short period of time. He actually had, from what I read, other head coaching opportunities, but chose. I think he went to the Steelers, didn't he?
He went to the Steelers. That's
correct.
So,
but he actually chose to go on Mike Tomlin's staff. So, but that was a deliberate, decision. But he had opportunities to interview for head coaching spots. So, but just based on, like I said, his record, his team barely, and they started 0-3 last year or something.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
at least. They started out very poorly last year, and then they rattled off like something like 7 or 8 straight wins towards the end of the season.
Yes,
to get back to where they were, trying to get into the playoffs. They were knocking on the door.
They were in the conversation the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah,
like one of the possible playoff teams. So
yeah, I think it should be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it should be good, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, well, let's jump in. It's prediction time. You want to start?
Why don't you start this time?
All right. There's 2 types of games that we could see. We could see a shootout, like the Baltimore game, where we get out ahead and then we end up playing prevent and preventing us from winning the game and letting them back in. But I really see this as similar to the Bills game last week. I think both defenses are stingy. Even though both teams this is another team that's got a good complement of receivers, just like we do. I mean, they don't have an edge on us with Hill and Waddle, and we have Boyd, we have Higgins and Chase and Boyd. I see that. Neither one of us make great use of our tight ends. I mean, they're a lot similar. I see this as a down and dirty, low scoring kind of battle. So I'm going to go 24-21. Bengals win. I'm going to see this as a low scoring game.
Yeah,
low scoring. Not like the last 2 primetime games we've seen with the Niners, what was it, 11-9 or something?
Right.
And then last night's was hardly a slugfest either. So
against my better judgment, I'm going to go just a touch higher than you.
Okay.
I say against my better judgment because these Thursday games can be such a mess.
Right.
They're just such a disaster. It's such a short time to prepare. No one ever looks ready on Thursday night unless it's the first Thursday night of the season and you haven't played a game yet.
Right. Like the Bills week 1.
Nobody ever looks ready at all. It's always herky jerky, penalties and pass interferences and false starts and all that stuff. With that said, it's I believe this is a Ring of Honor game when they unveil Ring of Honor name added to the stadium. Right. It is, of course, the whiteout game, and the Bengals will be wearing their helmets. And the players can say all day they don't care what they're wearing, but they're going to be excited about it anyway.
Yeah.
I do see the Bengals winning. I see Miami scoring more than I initially thought they would. I think that it's absolutely plausible for Waddle or Hill or both to get free on some long pass plays. But in the end, I think Cincinnati wins it, and I don't think we have to come back to win it. I think we just hold the lead. I'm going to say 27-23.
Okay. All right. Like I said, we still both see, because the defenses are the strengths of these units right now. We both see this as a lower scoring affair, not the shootout like they did with Baltimore. So
and the defenses and offenses could be working in tandem in that, both teams have the ability to give themselves short fields on a turnover. Where you don't have to march 90 yards in order to get a touchdown. You only have to march 35 or 40 because something went wrong on the previous drive.
Right. But I do see this. I think last week when we didn't kick the field goal on 4th down and go up 21, I think this week it's going to be, you're going to see Zach taking the field goal. We're going to take points when they're there, because I think
you got to take
that kind of game.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, with that, we'll be here with the recap on the right after the game on Thursday. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. Go ahead and hit the bell. Hit the thumbs up. Help us out with the analytics there at
Hit
YouTube.
that bang.
Hit that bang that thumbs up, because that helps us out and we become a suggestion for other videos. So,
and as always, please leave some comments below. We want to hear you. We want to hear your score for Thursday. We want to hear if you're going to the game. We want to hear what you agree and disagree with us about on this.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always, and we try to answer a lot of them. I think we did a pretty good job going through this last week on the short week of addressing a lot of them, at least giving you the thumbs up on your comments. So please do that. And there was a lot of interaction, especially on the previous week. We had like 87 comments or something. We had a lot of fans talking to one another. We'd love to see that. So please, this is by fans for fans, and we're a content rich show. So
that's right, baby.
This is mostly stuff. We had a little bobblehead deviation, but it's okay. We like to support our friends. So with that, I'm going to say hoot, everybody, and
let's win it.
Let's win it. 2-0 Thursday night. Take care.
Hoot.